We've been walking through some issues, and we are on the 8th podcast now in this particular series, talking about the church, talking about our relationship with the church, and even more important than a building, talking about the church as people, our relationship with each other. We've been talking about how that works with our spiritual gifts. We talked last time about how do we use our spiritual gifts wrong sometimes, and when you use them without love, what do they become? And we talked about getting to this place where sometimes you're stuck in your faith. You know, a lot of times we have people that go to church every Sunday and they feel like they're doing the right thing. And, you know, going to a church, we always say, doesn't mean that you're a Christian, just like standing in a garage doesn't mean you're a car. Just because you're there doesn't necessarily mean that something is going on spiritually between you and God. And sometimes we know how to walk the walk to look like it. We know how to say the right things. We know how to do the right things. And inside, we're hurting. And the church these days is full of those kinds of people. You may be one of them. And I want to go there today. We left off last time with Craig talking about, you know, getting there slowly but surely, you know, that place where he went from having all kinds of passion to being extremely legalistic and kind of wondering how he got there. And I think all of us have gotten to this place where we wonder how we've gotten to this spot and how do we get out of it again. You know, the inevitable thing is this. All have sinned, all fall short of the glory of God. Did you notice the word all? You know what it means? It means everybody except for me. Is that how you read it too? I'd like to think that's true, but it's not. It means all. It means you, and it means me. All of us have sinned. All of us fall short of the glory of God. It means that not all of us get things right. And along the way, we really need some people that we can trust to walk with, because we're going to have some things to correct. So how do we get there? How do we get to that place again? We were talking to Craig, and I'd like to continue for just a minute with Craig, and then I want to ask some of these guys a similar question. But Craig, we were talking about getting there slowly, and before you realize what's going on. And you went from there to another church that was not as legalistic, a little more doctrinally sound than the last one, but still some tough parts. Your personality is still buried a bit, would you say?
Yeah.
And the difficulty of this in coming back from it is what I'd like to talk about, and what I'd like for all of us to talk about. How do you go from this place to that place of restoration again? How do you get the old Craig back, or is he still there? Or do we even want him back? You know,
We do.
But how do we get him back? You know, what do you notice about you at this point? And having gone through this, looking at your life ahead, realizing that you are that frog in the boiling water. How do you get out of the pot?
Well, you know, I think that's kind of it's a hard question for sure. You know,
it is, yeah.
I think that there's a lot of soul searching that comes with that. You know, what are those deep passions that belong to me that I didn't pick up along the way, or that were superimposed on my life? I think that's one of the big things that happens a lot within a Christian setting, is that things are superimposed. You know, this is what our vision is, and you got to grab a hold of this vision, and if you don't, then there comes a condemnation and all that kind of stuff. So
it's okay if you have a vision, as long as it's our vision.
Yeah, pretty much, right? You know, this is and that's where legalism, I think, really strikes at the heart of things. Is if in any way that you don't reach their standard of what's right and wrong is the area where you're deficient. So you're not allowed to have questions. And really, every good conversation begins with a question, So you can't go to your pastor and say, I don't know what I think about this doctrine. I don't know what I think about this, view of God, because that you're now questioning, first of all, his authority because he believes that. And secondly, you're questioning God himself when in reality you're just, questioning your own ideas. Am I viewing this correctly? So when you find yourself that deeply entrenched, I mean, so many of the soul searching came through, honestly, a lot of it didn't come through myself. My wife or kids would ask a question, and then I would have to think, well, I don't know why I believe that. I have no idea. Let me go figure this out. And then you realize I had nothing to stand on here other than tradition or things that were pounded from a pulpit. I think a lot of times we don't realize how influential the things that influence us really are. I don't know why I believe these things. I have to go back and figure it out, and you realize, well, what? Maybe at the core of it, I really didn't believe it. Same thing, what do we believe about ourselves, and why do we believe that? Mm-hmm. Why do I believe I'm deficient in this area, or why am I viewing myself this way? Is it because other people have told me this is who I am? And that gets to be a pretty nasty trap.
Yeah.
Excellent point.
I remember I was going through this. I've had conversations with you about this, but what I used to do and how I used to be, and how far I've, away that it become. Oh my gosh. When I really got quiet and really thought about the things or went through some pictures and just go, what happened to me? Where did I go? Because I had a blast. Mm-hmm. I had such a good time. And it went away. It's this dwindling thing. It's like people that watch TV from, as soon as they get home to the time they go to bed. It doesn't matter if you don't believe what it is that they're saying. It dwindles away at your life and your belief, in humanity and everything. And that the more and more that I kept seeing it, just the craziness that church is these days, it just dwindled away in my life and became angry. Friends stabbing you in the back thousands of times, people that you put your love into, your whole self, and just destroyed. And then you just, after time, that anger destroys you. And it did. It destroyed me tremendously. I used to have such a good time, and most of the time, it's slowly but surely coming back because I'm far from, being completely back. But I have to find the flower again. Mm-hmm. The beauty in that flower, and like my last podcast, I don't function right, and I have to get to that place where I do. So God gives me those flowers and those miracles to concentrate on.
But did you expect to come back in the same ways that you have? Because, again, I've known you for a long time. And the ways that I've watched you come back from all of this is not even what I expected. Yeah. There are some parts of your personality that are very different than the way you used to be. The sensitivity is a lot deeper than what I ever remember you having. Yeah. So did some of that surprise you?
Tremendous amount. I never saw myself, okay, I was the musician, play as hard as you can, have a blast doing it, complete dedication to it, sleep on the floor, do whatever you got to do to make music happen, to an intellectual after the heart of God. I think very, very deeply. And I'm like, what? Why do I do this? There's reason for it. And I know that, this is part of finding real truth. And that's, I very much so am that, and that. But I never imagined this outcome the way I am today.
You never expected it to come around the way it did.
No.
Scott, I wonder if you, during this time, like when you're quitting, you were saying that you had to go before your family and you had to say, to your wife and your children, we're leaving the church, we're going through all of this. how is it being a husband when you're feeling like a personal failure?
It's hard.
And how is it being a child of the King in your relationship with him when you're going through this personal failure?
It's hard, and if we're going to be real honest, I ran some from the child of the King thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't worthy of that. I was a failure. As a result, I went through periods of time where I didn't want to listen to any Christian music. I don't want to hear anything to do that reminded me of anything churchy. I certainly didn't want to listen to any praise music, that kind of stuff. I didn't want to listen to preaching. I didn't want to. I said I will never wear another tie. You know, I mean, you say
Amen.
That's amen. I mean, all these things that I said. This,
I've stuck to that one.
I will make these changes so that I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And you know, that was how I dealt with how I felt with the church. I went because I was supposed to as the father and the husband. I went. You talked earlier in a podcast, 2 or 3 podcasts back, about slipping in the back door of the church. I still do that.
Yeah, me too.
I still slip into the back door of the church, sit down on the back pew, listen, get up and slip back out. Because I don't like, my least favorite part of an entire church service is the shake the hands of the visitors. I didn't care for that. I don't want nobody coming at me. I'd rather them not even know that I'm there.
I love that.
I want to be in my box.
Something wrong with you.
You know, I want to be in my box, and I don't want anyone coming into my bubble, and I want them to let me alone. So
But-
I get there as late as I can get there, and I leave as quickly as I can leave whenever it's over. But enough to be able to look at my kids and my wife and say, you know, we were at church this week.
But you're in the wrong box, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that isn't necessarily indicative of your relationship with God.
It's people.
It's the people.
It's
yeah.
people.
Right.
You know, I wonder about that a little bit, and obviously I'm in a transitional point, but why, and this probably is maybe not the right crowd to ask, but why does that have to be the way church is? You know what I mean? I'm struggling with that right now, because for the first few years that we were saved, we were going to a very legalistic church, extreme legalism, right? Where the pastor would have an altar call, and, you know, if there were 50 people in the church, 45 of them went forward, because that's, you know, and the 5 that didn't, he would say, oh, man, if something happens between here and when you get home, how are you going to face God knowing that you didn't come up to the altar, right?
God.
Yeah, true. Every service. And so for the first few years, God is just this angry, frustrated, I'm going to get you guy. Okay, so then you go from that to a more corporate setting. So now God becomes this corporate thing. I'm kind of hoping the next 5 years, God just becomes this guy that sits with me and my wife as we have coffee. I'm not...
Yeah.
I'm this isn't to you, Scott, in any way, but I don't know that I want to slip in the back door and slip out one. I'm just not, and maybe I'll change, but
But you got to find the right box.
is this what Jesus died for?
No.
You know
It's
what I'm
not.
saying?
It has nothing to
This
do with what he died
rotating
for.
door with somebody's monogram over the top. We are this.
Yeah.
Welcome. You know, here's what we got for you today.
To me, they sewed up the veil.
Right.
They sewed it back up after he tore it from the top down.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think church is today. You are not good enough to be in here, so
that's good.
I got to make sure that you don't get in here.
That's
And it hurts because you know that you're participating in the problem.
You know,
For
and
me-
let me just be totally irreverent here while I'm
Please.
on a roll. But
please.
how does spirituality equate to, you know, subpar music and a sermon that you've heard a million times just in a different way? What makes that spiritual? I
Right.
guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's reruns.
Totally.
It is. It is.
What's that?
It's reruns.
Reruns.
And
It
somehow,
is.
if you don't feel it, there's something wrong with you. And I don't know. I think I'm in a place where I'd like
And
to
if you
question
don't,
that.
and if you don't like you too, you don't like worship music. I mean, that's just about the way it is, isn't
It
it?
sounds all like,
a lot
sounds
of
like you
it's-
too.
It does. It all sounds like you too. I like you two a lot better, personally.
Well, a lot more glory on YouTube.
The original YouTube.
How does the body die? How does the physical body die? One organ at a time. It just does.
Are you talking about like a church organ?
But it does.
Real
That's how a
Christian
body dies,
instrument.
and we can't ignore, as the whole church,
Mhm.
we can't ignore the death that's happening. And
Well, we talk about the body and the person, this person being the hand, this person being the foot, this person being the, the finger or the ear or whatever, but we don't realize that we're walking around like zombies. This is a church that is a dead church. And a friend of mine even said, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but what if the baby's dead? It's time to revamp, reset. I've recently got into the Xbox thing, and I'm loving the reset button. You just start over. You push the button, and then you can, okay, I'm doing really bad, and you start over, and you start over.
There's a good sermon illustration right there.
Good one, isn't it? It's just one of those kind of things
Yeah, we
where,
think.
I like that. I like the fact in my life now, where I'm at, one of the things that we're doing is that we're going around and visiting other churches, and I'm enjoying that.
That's cool.
In fact, we've got a church that we're already planned a couple of weeks ago that next time I'm off and I'm not working, we're going to go visit this church, and that's what we're going to do. And I like looking forward to being able to do that. I didn't have that option for a long time in my life. So I really found a lot of fun in that. But at the same time, I don't want them to know that I was in ministry for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to know that I was the one standing where you're standing. I don't want them to know that I'm a part of Sanctuary right now. Just let me come in, let me listen, let me observe, let me participate.
Right.
But don't come at me and want something from me right now, because I'm in a place where I need to grow a little bit and I need to heal a little bit, and that will come. But right now, that's just where I am. And
this is what drives me crazy, and this is what bothers within me. I have no desire to do that.
really,
I'm more comfortable in the church when I'm in the pulpit. I'm sitting in a pew, sitting out there, and watching somebody preach. I'm very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. But if I'm in the pulpit, I'm completely at ease. All the anxiety, the meet and greet kind of thing. I mean, I really get anxious about it.
Oh,
I
really?
don't like it.
When
My
I'm in
heart starts pounding.
When I'm in the pulpit, I am completely at ease.
To me, it's like going to my refrigerator, grabbing that carbonated drink, and taking a sip, and the carbonation's gone on my plate. Done. Every single time. And I have not.
There's
you
a
know,
sermon illustration, right?
I haven't felt the. I haven't felt the desire. And when I hear like you slip in the back, and it's not, it makes me cringe, because what's the point?
Yeah.
To me, it's like, what's the point in doing that? Because if I'm not getting fed, if all I'm going to is this flat soda.
Let me tell you
Help me here.
One thing that blew my mind. Well, I mean, in my life, not only because of what I was for 20 years, but in my life growing up from childhood, you go to church. You go to church. That's what you do. I was talking with Pastor Bob. I said, Pastor Bob, this is where I'm at. This is before I became involved in Sanctuary even. I was looking for anyone that could help me with this place I found myself. And I didn't know what to do. I was totally a lump of clay saying, mold something out of this, because I was completely broken. Pastor Bob says, I said, I've got my daughters, I've got my wife, and I've got Sunday morning on the way, and it's Tuesday, and I'm already anticipating that, thinking, I don't want to go. Pastor Bob says, don't go. And I'm going, what? What? Don't go. And he said, I may be opening up a can of worms when I say this. This may be another whole podcast, but he says, he said, I came to a point in time where on Sunday morning I got up and I went to the movies.
Yeah.
And that is our next podcast.
And I'm thinking,
That's what I'm going to talk
I'm
about.
like, what?
But
What?
so let me just make one point here: is if this was available to me, if I lived in Alaska and I knew that we had this opportunity, I'd work my butt off to be here.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. I don't want flat soda. I don't want to just walk into a back, and just kind of like sit there and wonder what the heck, is this pride on my part? What is it?
Yeah.
But it's nothing within me enjoys
But
it.
this group here,
But this.
I mean, I'm taking vacation time to be here from work and driving hours. And you're driving hours. He got on an airplane
yes.
because of what this, not because of we get to be in sanctuary. It's not like that. It's I need to be able to see you. I need to be able to spend some time with you. I want to be able to go eat Chinese with you. I want to see you and be a part of. I want to be a part of this.
Exactly.
And the podcasting that we're doing right now, that's fine. That's great. But that's not why I came here.
I
came here
would go to
because-
Chris's church. I would go
Yeah.
there. I would be fed. I know I would be.
Yeah.
That's that kind of, it's any one of you guys, if you guys were to speak, I would want to listen.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Seriously.
I was telling him last night that he is the one that if I could listen to one person 30 minutes every Sunday, I would sit down and listen to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Chris Dorman.
That's the truth. He's the star man. But this is why can't I be here every Sunday? Why can't I do this?
Well, we're going to talk about that in our next podcast. Folks, again, this is getting raw. We're about to open up some more cans of worms in the next one. Yeah. Just when you think it can't get any deeper, we're about to do it. So don't hesitate to join us the next time. And we'll talk a little more about this communication that we have with each other, this community that we have with the Lord, and this thing that we call church that is very much misunderstood. Bye-bye.